Before we get into this episode, there's something that might be of interest that I wanted to tell you about. Scene and Heard, who run this podcast, have been asked by Scotland Food and Drink to undertake a strategic review of the Scotland Food and Drink Excellence Awards. Now, these Excellence Awards have been going for almost 20 years and are a huge mainstay of the food and drink sector. But it's time to ensure that they're still relevant. So if you have ever been involved in the Scotland Food and Drink Excellence Awards, or even if you've ever had an opinion about them, we would love for you, please, to complete our survey. So if you go to the On Farm Twitter, which is at @on_farm UK, and click the link in the bio, there will be a tab in there that will take you to the survey, and it should only take you a very short while to complete, but we would be enormously grateful. Hello, thanks for downloading this episode of On Farm. We're in strange times at the moment, so I hope you're all well and healthy. We've got something a bit more upbeat for you today. This is the first of 2 episodes we've recorded with the Batch Lady. Her real name is Suzanne Mulholland, and she lives on a farm in the Scottish borders. And over recent months, Suzanne has become rather famous for her fantastic social media batch cooking videos. So we've been to visit her to find out more about how it all began. But we didn't start our chat in her famous kitchen, but rather in the outbuildings on the farmyard where she keeps her ingredients and her amazing array of finished products. Right, so this is the famous freezer, the famous freezers.
Freezers, yes.
Wow.
Batch Lady, you've got to have more than one freezer.
Oh, amazing.
So, quite well organised.
Yes.
So these are freezers that are catering freezers, so they're stand up. And they've got they're just got shelves. It's like putting something in your pantry, basically.
Perfect.
So
easy to view what's in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's usually got chicken meals, fish meals, vegetarian. That's the fish one. That's the vegetarian one. So each shelf is a different protein. So this is my freezer that has already prepared meals.
So it's been batched.
It's been batched.
Yeah.
This is the batched freezer. So you just pull it out and you'll see how thin they are.
That's the mistake I'm making at home. It's a freezer bag, but almost completely flat. So this one's got spaghetti bolognese times 4 portions in it, but it takes up almost no space because of the way that you've packed it into the freezer.
Exactly. So it looks like a thin book. That's the best way to describe it. And you stack them up like a bookshelf. Now, the reason that they're so good is if you put them in a freezer bag, and these are all washable and reusable, the freezer bags, so you don't have to worry about, as long as you buy ones, then you're not wasting the plastic. By freezing them flat, you get way more in. So even if you've got a small freezer, you don't need to worry. But also they defrost really quickly. So they defrost because they're thinner. Where if you've frozen your stuff in an ice cream tub, 3 weeks, wait on that to defrost. So these defrost really quick, and also because they're in a bag, if you put them in freezing cold water, they'll defrost in 15 minutes.
That was a tip that I didn't know until I watched one of your videos in the early days. I kind of didn't believe it when I heard it, because I thought, how can that be possible? But I tried it.
Yeah, so not hot water, or you'll injure someone. Cold water, and they defrost really quickly. So no matter what happens, if the weather turns bad, or you're lambing, or you've got lots of stuff going on, that you can have it already prepared in advance.
As you say, without taking too much space up.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't normally touch too much on topical issues on this podcast, but coronavirus, we're in the grip of it at the moment, although we're still free to move around, so hence we're here. But I think what you do really comes into its own in either the beast from the east, when you're stuck indoors and you can't leave for weeks, or a situation like this, which is currently unknown, but where we could be having to self-isolate for 14 days minimum, and having pre-prepared meals is not just sensible, but actually could be a sanity saver as well.
Yeah, without a doubt, I would definitely say so. And because we don't really know what's going to happen in the next few months, it's good to be organised in advance, because if nothing happens and we all end up going about our daily life, the worst case scenario is you've got 20 meals ready in your freezer for whenever you want them, which is perfect. So really, it's a win-win. And really, I'd say that it's just about, before you go to the shops, really thinking about what you do need and how you can make it into a meal, because panic buying is not going to help you. And again, just frozen fruit and veg, it's picked, as you all know, on the farm, and within 20 minutes it's processed and frozen for you. It's full of good nutrients. There's no reason not to use that. If you can't get out for any reason why, you've still got vegetables and fruit that you can feed your family a balanced diet.
And then that gives you time to concentrate on the homeschooling or...
I know.
Keep me well away from that.
Teachers are a saint. I do not intend to do any homeschooling apart from throwing my guys out on the farm to get on with life.
Yeah. Well, somebody did post something on social media the other day which said, particularly if you're rural, which many of our listeners are, use this opportunity for your kids to learn about, tree species or animals. It's everything that's going on a farm anyway, or in rural areas. It actually could be an opportunity for us to teach our kids something different than just algebra.
Yeah, I think I'm a massive fan on kids sort of learning as they go along in normal life. So for our kids, when school stops, they will be with us on the farm doing everything that we plan on doing, and they'll be up at the forestry with us doing bits of that, and they'll be helping with lambing because we're not quite into that yet. So there's lots of stuff that they'll be doing that they will just naturally learn.
Before we talk a bit more about the farm, can we just look in freezer number 2?
Yes. So this freezer is the non-processed. So this is our beef that has come from our farm. So we've got our beef, we've got our lamb, we've got our game.
Oh yes,
lots of game birds in there, and we went half on a pig with someone.
Oh, excellent.
So we've bartered some beef for some pig because we don't have any pigs.
Yes.
So we've just got half a pig that's came in from friends of ours, and black pudding that came from Carluke. I don't know if you know Carluke black pudding.
No, I don't.
So Ramsay's.
Ramsay's. Oh, yes, I haven't then.
A bit of haggis going on there, which always helps.
Oh, yeah.
So, this is stuff that I will then take out, defrost it, cook it for a family meal, and then make the rest into other meals that will go into the freezer beside it. Yeah.
And I know supermarkets are critical for all of us. I don't know very many people who don't shop in a supermarket. We need them. But I know that you also love to support local shops, and your butcher being one example. Can you tell us a bit about that and how you kind of integrate local produce into supermarket staples in your recipes?
So the majority of my people that follow me on The Batch Lady would be following me because they are working full-time, they're busy, they've got lots going on in their lives, and so they are, because of that, end up shopping in a supermarket. And it is more expensive sometimes shopping locally. We have to, that has to be a reality in it. But what those local shops give you, like my local butcher, who I've done lots of videos with, and I've done videos at Peebles at the fish shop, is they give you great knowledge that you wouldn't necessarily know before. So some of the videos that we've done are sort of, going to the butchers and saying, what is the cheaper cuts of meat that we can use when we're making these meals? You don't always need the expensive cuts. If you're going to put something in a slow cooker or slow roast it, you are then using much better meat. It's locally sourced, you're helping, but you're still spending the same amount of money because you're eating a cheaper cut of meat, and that's where these butchers come into their own.
And you're supporting the rural community by putting your money into local butchers in that case, and also the farms where the meat's coming from. So it's kind of a win-win.
Yeah, definitely is. And I really try to run The Batch Lady on a non-judgment sort of thing, however anybody eats, whether they're carb-free, whether they're vegan, whether they're farmers and they eat a lot of meat. I just don't really get involved. I think batching is for anybody, no matter what your diet is. But I do always tend to say, in terms of meat, that if you can buy Scottish produced meat for animal welfare, it's a lot better. So I've always made a point of saying that if you can possibly do that, and I would rather put half the amount of meat in and substitute it with some lentils and make sure it was better quality meat for my family. But that's my opinion. It depends on the budget that people have.
Absolutely. Particularly, as you say, adding lentils and also vegetables. Not only does it fill you up, but actually you're sneaking some vegetables in for perhaps a fussy child in my case, and getting them to eat in a healthy way as well.
Yeah, I've started to add in, I've been doing lots on adding in lentils and things that don't look like lentils, because my kids can, spot a kidney bean from a mile away. But things like red lentils that can go into a minced meat dish, you actually can't tell the difference. They disappear, but they bulk it out, so it is cheaper. It's a bit healthier, it's adding in a bit of extra. So it's a good way to eat. So I'm going to be coming up with lots of stuff like that about how to add in those extra bits that can disappear, that eagle-eyed, fussy children don't notice.
Thank you, Suzanne. That's fulfilled my organisational obsession, and I love to see order, and that's amazing. And we've seen the raw product in the beginning of the journey and all of the batched cooking at the end of the journey. So I think it would be good to go back indoors now and have a chat about where it all began and everything that's happened since then with the book launch, which was quite recent, and hear your story.
Perfect. Yeah, let's go.
All right, look. Come back indoors, get the coats off and sit down at the kitchen table. It's such a welcoming, lovely hallway. I love your church pew there. It's really nice. Extremely cosy.
I love a bit of interiors when I get the chance. So,
and I see you've got scented candles as well, which always cheers me up. So they smell delicious.
Yeah, that's my husband, who is a usual rural man, never knows what to buy. So once upon a time, I once said I liked a certain candle, and I've now got one every single sort of birthday and Christmas because he has no clue. They're the same scent, the same brand. I mean, he just goes, right, I'll just order that online before. He's probably got a stock somewhere. Yeah, exactly. So I do that. I batch buy birthdays presents.
Well, I love this because you've preempted some of my questions. And I remember when the first time I met you, you were telling me that actually you'd also kind of batch, as you say, other things, and that you, for example, you get your clothes ready. If you're going to London for something, you get your clothes ready in advance. And so it's all about kind of preparedness, I guess. And that must transfer for you over from cooking into other areas of your life too.
Yeah, I think, as lots of your listeners will be in the same boat, as when you live somewhere really remote and rural, you have to be organised. So for lots of stuff, like if my daughter comes in and says, I've been invited to a birthday party, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to manage to find a present and a card. And, it's actually going to be a half a day's jaunt to get to the shops, to buy it, to bring it back. So, so I do batch things like that, where I'll take her and say, right, what do you think each girl would like, and we'll do it all at the same time. Yes. And actually you save a great deal of money as well, because you're not spending £3 on a card, you're buying a pack of 10 and then we just buy small things and keep them in a cupboard up the stairs, and then when she comes in and says, I've been invited to a birthday party, boom, already organised.
Yes. And that'll be handy at Christmas time as well, I should think.
Yeah, I mean, lots of stuff like that I think is really good to have organised. But I think a lot of people who live in the rural community are all like this. We've all been sort of brought up that, most of us have what's called a sweetie cupboard, because there's no ice cream van coming around here. You're not going to the local shop. So yeah, we batch buy our sweets, and then I just have to fend the children off. So it's very high up.
Absolutely. And what about, this might be a cheeky question, but what about things like gin? Do you batch buy gin?
Oh yes. Now I could let you see my pantry, but we batch buy a lot of alcohol. Yeah.
Well, you just never know when you might need it. And I think now is maybe a time that I've actually given up alcohol for Lent, but I've said to my husband, if they close the schools in East Lothian, then I'm declaring exceptional circumstances and I'm giving up my Lent goal, because I don't think I can deal with 24/7 kids and not have a glass of wine at the end of the day. That's a terrible admission.
No, not at all. I've already started the exceptional circumstances. I'm well in there. Last night I opened a bottle of red and went for a bath. Decided that I was just relax as everything was being cancelled in my diary, because I was supposed to be in America next week for starting with the book, and it's all postponed. So bottle of red it was.
And speaking of alcohol, did you crack open a bottle of champagne on the day that your book was launched? I'm sure you did.
Do you know, we should have, but we were quite busy here and I can't remember what was happening. So it's been lovely launching a book and doing all of this stuff has been fantastic. But there's definitely, here's a good example. So last night I said to my husband as he came in the door, I said, I've just had an email to say that I'm in the Sunday Times bestseller list for the second week in a row. I said, which is amazing. And he says, I've just been to check the biomass. That's brilliant. But could you come and help me with such and such? So they're really pleased. Everybody's really happy. But life sort of just goes on as normal in this house. And I think the kids are loving it that they tell everybody that their mum's a YouTube sensation, which I'm not, but it's you are. They think that's cool. If you've got teenage kids, that your mum's a YouTuber, they think that's very cool.
Ultimate and cool. We're sitting right now by the kitchen island next to the Arga, which is keeping us warm, and obviously Argas are a staple of quite a few farmhouse kitchens. So Suzanne, you told us that this all began because you already batch cooked, and some of your school mum friends said, show us how to do it, and you did a demonstration for them, and that was 2.5-ish years ago, and it's just snowballed since then. But can you tell us a little bit about the steps along the journey?
So it all started actually about 10 years ago when I had my kids, actually probably about 13 years ago, when I really realised that I wanted to batch cook, and what was out there was either, slightly outdated in terms of it's just being stews and soups and things like that, or I then started to look at Americans and how they batch cooked, but it was all very much full of cheese, and it wasn't quite how we ate, it wasn't things that we always wanted to eat. So I've always cooked like this, and then 2 years ago, friends obviously at the school gates kept saying, how do you always know what you're having for dinner? Help us. And a friend of mine wasn't very well, and we were raising money for charity for that. And so I said, why don't you come along? And everybody had to sort of, pay at the door and come into my kitchen. There was 20 mums, and I did a quick demo for an hour and made 10 meals. They all went, okay, you need to put that on YouTube or Facebook or something, but that is revolutionary. Yeah. And I have never wanted to have a video of myself, not even at my wedding. I don't like getting pictures taken. I thought I could never do this. And I drank a lot of wine before the first video that I keep meaning to take off of YouTube
because you needed it for the recipe.
It's a very slurry video, but literally for weeks my husband was saying, will you just do a video, where instead I'd got the camera, I'd got the laptop, I'd learned how to do everything apart from actually making the video. So and then once I made one and I put it out and thought I'll test it and see what people think. And it just really went from there. I haven't tried particularly hard to do this. It's just been people started to write in to say, that was brilliant. Would you do a chicken one? That was great. Would you do a vegetarian one? It's been very organic. I haven't sort of pushed it out there. And even when HarperCollins got in touch, they got in touch with me. I wasn't there sort of punting it or anything. It just sort of naturally occurred, which is how I like things to work in life.
Yeah. Just last week, we were on a Perthshire farm with a farmer called Martin Kennedy, who actually kind of came to my attention in many ways because he puts a lot of stuff on Facebook, which is a very rational and logical argument about the benefits that farming delivers for the countryside. So it's obvious that Facebook and other social media platforms are really beneficial for businesses like yours or initiatives like yours. Have you ever seen the not so nice side of social media at all? So I do think it's hugely beneficial. I think you're completely right there. And it's great if you live rurally that you can get stuff out. Yeah, there is always a negative side of it. So YouTube is always more negative than the rest of social media. And that's because a video will just pop up. Somebody's been watching something else. Then they don't quite understand what yours are, where on other social media, people have chosen to follow you. Yes. I make it a point, and always have, that I respond to everything. And I will respond to a negative comment if there's a reason for it and I need to let them know. But generally, I don't read much. Like if I'm in newspapers or magazine articles, I never read any of the comments, ever. If I'm online, I don't read it. So I think for mental health, it's good to put stuff out there, answer all the good bits that you can, and, leave the other bits alone. Yeah, quite right.
It's amazing, I think, because I've managed to, for anybody who's out there who's rural as well, is you can create a business now from living anywhere at all. And you can reach a vast amount of people around the world. The book launches in America in May, in Australia, it's going all over Europe. I mean, who would have thought from a farmhouse in the Ettrick Valley that you could tap into that many people? And actually you can nowadays. If you've got a decent amount of internet access, then you can do anything.
Actually, what advice would you have for anybody out there in rural Scotland who's thinking, I've got a bit of a seed of a business idea, but I don't know what to do next?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, actually. I think I would really say is you need to not think about it as a business. I never started this wanting to create a business. I didn't plan to ever start it. It was just some mums at the school gate asking me to show them how to batch cook, and then said put it on YouTube and Facebook, and it went from there. And for 2 years, I started 2.5 years ago, and it's all been free content. Now you can make money through different ways, but if you're doing some demos and things like that, but you really have to give people a lot of free content and free information. People aren't going to buy from somebody when they don't know who they are. Yeah. So I think that's the main pitfall that people sometimes do, is expecting that people will automatically be able to create some money from this. And it has to be thought of more long term. But what I would say is when it happens in terms of, getting some amazing feedback, is it's really good for your quality of life. If you feel like you're helping people and people are getting in touch with you all the time saying, this is great, I've got 4 children, you've really helped me, I'm working full time, I'm a GP and I'm struggling to manage and it's been great, then that really, really helps. And it's those things that are significant to me rather than the sort of massive business idea. I think that naturally progresses itself if you can just give somebody the sort of information that you want to give them.
So do you think that's what gives you the most satisfaction then, despite the book and everything? Do you think that's the kind of the original motivation is still what gives you the most satisfaction?
I think it's part of it, definitely. The other part is I'm 44 years old. I studied a master's degree in time management. That's what I'm really into. That's why I'm doing this. That's not really the cookery aspect of it. It's more about saving time. And being in a rural place on a farm with 2 kids, I did start to feel like I was going a bit brain dead. So the fact that I'm actually learning new stuff every day, I've learned to edit a video. I didn't have, I shared a email account with my husband. Now the fact of learning something new every day, and every day I'm still learning new things, of how to create a different type of video, or writing a book was completely new to me and doing that. So it's really allowed me, I feel young compared to what I did when I was sort of in that drudgery of, not as drudgery, I loved being with the kids, but you do feel slightly switched off. And so I definitely feel like I'm back being the 25-year-old I was before I had kids. And what I would say as well is, of course, when I'm doing these videos and I'm creating the meal in front of people who are watching it, I've actually then saved the time, because that's what we're eating that night. And half of it's going in the freezer. Yes. So it's sort of, although I am doing the videos for YouTube and for Facebook, I'm actually using all of that stuff to feed everybody on the farm. Absolutely. So it's a win-win.
Yeah. Now, I remember, this has kind of always stuck in my mind. I remember when I first met you, which was very much after you'd started, but it was before the kind of the book deal and everything. And you described to me all of the different benefits that people can derive from batch cooking. And I have to admit that I had probably only seen the most obvious one, which is that you have a load of delicious meals in your freezer. But you talked to me about how it can save money and sort of mental energy and things like that. So can you maybe talk us through what the benefits that people do get when they kind of embrace the whole batching ethos?
So I think that no matter whether you love cooking or whether you hate cooking, and it's like this with anything in life, if you are going to do it or be asked to do something every single day of your life, that becomes a chore. And we're all nowadays inundated with the fact of we need to try to save money. We don't want to use very much plastics. We want to give nutritious meals to our kids. We need a variety of meals to give to our kids. We're all working a lot of long hours compared to what it used to be years ago. And all of that creates a lot of sort of, it's quite hard mentally on your headspace. And that's not just food. You could then look at everything else that becomes a chore, that you do, that sort of Groundhog Day that you do every single day. So I think what batching food does is it allows you to be quite mindful of what you're buying and when you're cooking. Sort of like on a Sunday morning, I might do 10 meals. It takes me an hour. I'll put them in the freezer and I feel a great sense of sort of achievement. I've done it. It's done for the time ahead. I know my family are being fed. And also there's a ton of people that are probably like what I am sometimes when I'm not that organised, is at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're still at work, but you're thinking, what am I going to feed everybody? How's it going to work? And batching takes that away. It really does. If I said to you, Anna, that you're going to come in every night and you're going to have a meal that just needs put in the oven for 30 minutes, it's homemade, it's nutritious, you're only going to have to wash one dish that it was in, and you'll have that every single night, you jump at it.
Oh, absolutely. And I think also, we've talked about kind of panic buying in the context of coronavirus, but actually I think some people panic buy almost on a daily basis because they think, I don't know what we're going to have for supper. So they go into the supermarket and just grab what they see and end up maybe buying things that don't necessarily go together, or spending more money than they need to because they haven't planned out their shop. And so I think it's benefiting in that way as well.
I've been doing quite a lot of work with Love Food, Hate Waste. And it is about sort of, I mean, when we waste food, although it's sometimes seen as quite a boring topic, but actually you're not only wasting money, but you're wasting the time that it took you to go and choose that, to then bring it home, take it out of a bag, put it in your fridge, take it out the fridge, put it in the bin. You know, there's a lot that goes with that amongst wasting the food itself.
And they're wasting the time of the person who's grown that food as well.
Without a doubt. And if it's a pepper, you know, where it's flown from and all of that stuff. So the meals that I show you how to make, I show you how to portion them out as well, so that actually you're not being left with leftovers. You're making your own ready meals. That's basically the best way to look at
absolutely. And I suppose also, certainly in my household, this won't be the same for everybody, but actually it's quite a good way also of preventing a little bit of unnecessary greediness. Because I know if I make, or if my husband makes a meal from scratch just for that night, there might be just a little bit more than we really need. And sometimes the temptation is, we'll just finish it. Whereas if you pre-portion things, you're actually eating a healthy portion size, because you've done it yourself deliberately like that.
Yeah, I would agree with that, apart from I'm not a size 8, so I'm obviously not eating that much of a healthy portion size, although I do like coffee and a scone. So, I will steer away from that, I'd say. But no, what I would say is, the portion sizes are quite funny, because I show you how to portion control, but obviously some people write into me and say, your portions are huge, and other people write in and say, these portions are tiny.
Yeah. We've seen your amazing freezers, and you explained to us about you use the bags, the reusable freezer bags, so you wash them and use them again. Are there any other kind of tools of the trade that you really recommend in terms of making the batching journey easier for people?
So actually what I would always say is you don't need very much. You need a huge big pot, which most people tend to have. I would always say a set of cups, you know, those spoon cups that you get. The recipes in the book and on my website are all in cups. And the reason is it's really quick to use. So you're not having to weigh things out. It's put in 3 cups, and when you're portioning it out, like a cup of bolognese is a portion, you know. So I would say cups are definitely good. Your bags that you can put stuff in is great. Now got silicone bags as well. They're not as cheap, but they then last. It's like a bit like buying your Tupperware, so they're always very good. So you really don't need very much at all. The recipes in the book are all paired with, so if you've got one meal, it shows you how to do another meal that's quite similar. So if you're going to be making fish pie, you can also make a fish chowder in the same amount of time. And so as long as you are sort of, you've got enough things in that you can put them in either. So Pyrex dishes with the lid on the top that you get are fantastic.
If for whatever reason somebody's not had a chance to go to the shop, so they don't necessarily have the ingredients they need for one of your recipes in the book, have you got any kind of store cupboardy tips up your sleeve that might be helpful for a kind of emergency situation?
Actually, I just did an article on this, funnily enough, yesterday for a newspaper that's about to come out. So store cupboardy tips are really sort of, I include in the store cupboard my freezer. So frozen fruit and veg, always fantastic. Things like cans of tuna that you can then make into more of a sort of like, you know, pasta bake, your tinned vegetables. One of the things that I would always recommend, and I've used it a few times in my book as well, is Campbell's condensed soup. It is a fantastic, easy,
that's a grandma staple.
Yeah,
isn't it? I love
and
that.
Everybody laughs about it and goes, "Oh, what about those people that use condensed soup?" Condensed soup is fantastic. You can make a chicken pie out of 2 leftover chicken breasts and some tinned vegetables, and you've got this creamy chicken pie that is actually, if you thought about it, it's like feeding your children soup with chicken in it. I mean, it's healthy, it's good. Yes. Those things are amazing, and I swear by them.
You've got the veg as well.
Yeah. So yes, definitely condensed soup. Go and buy condensed soup, everybody. It's a perfect one to have in.
And they don't even sponsor you, so that's like a free tip.
Yes, Campbell's, if you're listening,
yes. Get in touch. Now I know in your videos you do cook on your Aga, because we're sitting in the farmhouse kitchen next to an Aga, but you don't talk about it specifically, understandably, because not that many people in the wider population have an Aga. But we are a farming and rural podcast, so there will be
a few people listening who have an Aga. Do you enjoy cooking on it? Have you got any kind of unique tips for Aga owners that might be different for other people?
So I love cooking on it. I mean, I've always cooked in an Aga, so to me, it is the best way that you could possibly cook. But you're right, I don't really mention it, and it's because there's a lot of people that don't have one. But I absolutely love it. I love the slow bottom oven because you can just throw stuff in there. I also like the fact that you can cook anything in the top oven and then just leave it sort of warm for people coming in. So quite often if I've got kids coming in at different times, they can just scoop out what they want out of it. So I absolutely love it. My top tip that I just learned the other day is that on the top of your Aga, on your, what am I calling the top on my plate? If you want something to sit for a long time and simmer, but your cooler plate is still too hot, you get 3 2p pieces and sit them on a triangle, and then sit your pot on top of the 2p pieces, and it'll just have enough heat to sort of radiate and simmer away.
I did not know that either.
There you go.
That's life-changing.
It's my top Aga tip.
That's amazing. We'll leave the chat there and pick up next time. Thank you to Suzanne, and thank you to all of you for listening. Hope you found this useful, and for times of lockdown and obviously lambing season for some of you, useful in terms of working out what you've got in the freezer and how to make best use of it for some batch cooking. So we hope you found it useful, and please do stay safe.